The moment a farmer finds black eggs on his land, he begins to wonder which he concludes that an animal could have laid them. To keep a careful eye on them, and when they at last hatch, he is so shocked that he starts crying, since Raymond, the farmer, has always wanted to run a successful egg company. His farm is located in a Georgia's charming valley, had been inherited from his family. Sadly, the last few generations' years had proven to be difficult. What was once a thriving farm for him was now barely surviving, despite the escalating cost of feed, rivalry, and declining interest in his traditional brown and white eggs have greatly affected his livelihood. So when he suddenly arrived around a dozen black eggs that were strewn, he was so taken aback across his farm that for about 10 minutes he stood still. Minutes he had never heard of or even seen of eggs such as these previously. None of his chickens ever generated anything at all comparable for a. He pondered briefly whether they might be snake eggs and carefully looked at the region in quest of any crawling creatures found in the tall grass, yet it seemed like whatever had already moved on after laying the eggs and left them. But Raymond the farmer didn't understand what to consider. On the one hand, those strange eggs could reveal frightening monsters he would eventually have to battle to leave his home. Yet on the other hand, they might be precisely what his farm needs. Required for people to prosper once more, they could be prepared to spend more money on those eggs if it intended to add a playful edge to their omelets, and they might be able to pay more, especially for the chicken flesh. Throughout the holidays, like Halloween, he might get wealthy if those more black chicks were hatched from the eggs, unless they were claimed by someone else. Raymond wasn't a thief before to this. However, legally, those eggs were on his property, and he was just too interested to expose them to the public for everyone else to saw, so he quickly apologized in a whispered, whatever entity had placed them there, and began putting them on his. He would place them in an incubator on a truck. He remained on the farm, waiting for them to hatch and make the surprise visible. Within over the next few days, Raymond closely observed and modified the eggs, the humidity and temperature levels with accuracy, so they reflected the warmth a mother hen could provide the eggs. He would check on them each morning, and his heart soared upon seeing the still silky black shells unharmed. He ventured to dream of the weird beings that would shortly appear. Would they be entirely black from them? In addition, Raymond's quiet moments thought of the rush of interest these unusual eggs could produce, he thought. Customers are swarming to his farm, each anxious to spend a lot of money to see everything. But in spite of his black chickens, Raymond was excited but apprehensive, was aware that much work remained. The days passed before the eggs hatched, into weeks while Raymond waited tensely. When the black eggs hatch, the anticipated hatching date passed. Every day, without any indications of life, Raymond looked at the incubator, fervently hoping to find fissures in the shells or detect the subtle eavesdropping of chicks, yet the eggs did not move, and it seemed as though their dark shells were silent. Mocked his hopes, tension built within, and as the days went by, Raymond without any alter as he waited longer, the more his questions grew about whether he was mistaken to deliver those eggs to his residence. What if they didn't belong to chickens at all? Could he have unintentionally endangered? The entire farm uncertainty took hold of him, slowly weakening. His Raymond's everyday routine was confident, became a never-ending cycle of diligence and concern. He got up before sunrise. Daily, through monitoring the temperature and the amount of humidity in the incubator, in spite of his mounting nervousness, he tried to stay optimistic, he said, convinced himself that the enigmatic eggs were a favor from destiny, rather than an indication of after caring for the eggs. Bad luck, Raymond continued with the remainder of his. He did tasks like watering and feeding his poultry. The coos were cleaned, and the farm's standard brown and white eggs were still having difficulties, and the requirements of keeping it up took a lot of his shoulders. Every activity appeared more difficult, as well as his concern about the black eggs cast a shadow over everything he did. One frigid morning, Raymond woke up feeling unusually weak. His skull throbbed and his body ached with fever. He tried to push through the discomfort, but it soon became apparent that he was too sick. In order to do his everyday duties, the constant anxiety and restless nights had left him after taking their toll. Confined to their beds and unable to provide for the farm, days passed quickly as Raymond lay. His head was cloudy in bed with fever, The farm, once bustling with activity, began to show signs of neglect. Unchecked weed growth affected the chicken CPS, grew unclean, and the feed bins began to sprint. Regular egg output decreased. As Raymond's absence had a negative impact on the animals and the close-knit group around, Raymond's farm began to notice. Neighbors muttered about the change among themselves, worried about the formerly prosperous farm now slipping into destroy. Jake, Raymond's long-term companion, and the first person to take was the neighbor. Action. He made the decision to visit the property and check to see whether Raymond needs assistance. As he got closer to the farmhouse, he noticed the indications of disregard and realized something was. Jake knocked on the door, and it was really wrong, and discovered Raymond barely conscious. Ability to rise from bed. After realizing given the gravity of the situation, Jake promptly assumed leadership and reassured Raymond that he would look after the farm as he recuperated, and advised him to take a break and recover his power. Jake threw himself into the work. He tended to the fowl, made sure the coos were cleaned, and that he even reached out to feed the animals, contacted other nearby residents, and requested their assist in maintaining the farm running. Although in a weaker condition, Raymond neglected to inform his pals about in the incubator. The enigmatic eggs, and Jake and the other neighbors would be taken by surprise. Lives one night while Jake was completing as he finished the day's tasks, he heard the sound of the chicken peeping coop. His heart pounded as he rushed inside while holding a flashlight. He looked at the nest rows and heard the sound became louder till he arrived at the incubator and noticed a movement within. He was startled by one of the black eggs, the scene, and questioned, "Where on earth?" Jake, Raymond had discovered such odd eggs, hastily returned to the farmhouse to share his acquaintance that the enigmatic eggs in his what in the world were the incubators hatching. Might be within them, Jake pondered out loud. Raymond merely gave a headshake, stating his friend he had not yet met, but even though he was weak, his eyes brightened up. Awoke with optimism that maybe this was going to be the pivotal moment he required while he healed. Raymond recalled the full narrative to Jake regarding the intriguing black eggs as soon as he found them throughout the restless night, wasted worrying that they would bring about calamity to his farm, and he was grateful to have his companions now that the eggs were at last beginning to hatch. If when anything negative happened, they would assist, let him handle it, but if something unusual from them, they would. Everyone rejoices in the moment. 2 days later, Raymond was doing fine, enough for him and Jake to leave their beds. Their faces were knelt by the incubator, inches away from the eggs that are hatching. Then the first woman came out, apologizing for the disruption prior to moving forward with the story. I respectfully request that you enjoy the video and follow this channel. It's really vital to us. Many thanks. Both of the men exhaled in relief. Moment they became aware of the creatures. Indeed, there were birds within the eggs, but the sigh became a cry of excitement. When they observed the girls, its feathers have a lustrous appearance, black that glistened in the faint illumination. When the girls' eyelids opened, it allowed one by one. They let out a little chirp of triumph. Each chick started to hatch from the remaining eggs, had glossy black feathers, and was a marvel, with keen, inquisitive eyes. The procedure was captivating. The girls' struggles, and they struggled to escape the shells, exhibiting tenacity that was indicative of he observed Raymond's own journey. Enthralled as the penultimate girl at last breaking loose, Jake hurriedly produced his phone and began looking for solutions. These may be Samani from the internet. Chicks, he finally exclaimed in a voice emotionally broken. Raymond frowned as he turned to face him. He was unaware of the identity of San chickens. With a laugh, Jake clarified that these chickens from Indonesia are very uncommon and in high demand because of their jet black characteristics, like as eyes, beak, and down to the bones. Their feathers' eggs might fetch an incredible price. Moreover, he was certain that people would spend money only to see the chickens. He was amazed by how those eggs ultimately arrived to Raymond's farm, but he was fairly certain that they would take everything of his financial difficulties removed from Raymond's. Feelings at that precise moment overcame him, and tears filled his eyes, and he made no attempt to stop them. Had made such sacrifices and fought so much, and he finally had the promise. Anticipating a more promising future in his demonstrates the I am Shawnee chip, so exquisite and uncommon, brought he wept with a deep sense of relief and gladness. His tears fell freely onto the straw-covered floor. The current situation had been on his farm and was sinking, on the verge of failure, but destiny had granted on it an opportunity, for the black eggs had at last hatched, signifying the start of a new phase in Raymond's as word of the hatching spread. Farmed swiftly among neighbors in the community who had been there for Raymond during his people with illnesses, came to the farm to observe the amazing women. They were with admiration for the Chamonix's jet black feathers, and everyone was left in awe of the magnificent appearance. Gasping in awe, Raymond's rekindled optimism was not only about having enough money, it was about the nearly lost dream. As well as the enthusiasm he had put into his work, the San girls represented a new begin, the process of rebuilding and develop, as he observed the girls exploring peck at the straw and their new world. Raymond felt satisfied with his, had been unaware for years in the past that as he meticulously attended to it was crucial to make sure they got the greatest treatment. He built a unique enclosure for them that comes with fresh bedding and heat lights are needed, recorded their development by making notes on their growth, and conduct their streamlined black feathers shone in the sunlight, as well as their lively and curious nature, added fresh vitality to the farm. But shortly after, Raymond started to observe something remarkable about these women's individuality traits exceeded their. The girls' gorgeous looks were extremely resilient. They flourished in circumstances that would test other breeds. They developed more quickly and powerfully, more than Raymond had predicted, and showed a resilience that made them. Their feathers weren't just black, though. Nevertheless, possessed an iridescent sheen in the ideal lighting conditions, shimmered with green undertones and purple, as though they were carrying a touch of magic in there. Raymond carefully documented the plumage. These he discovered from his observations that his Samani brood was outstanding. Despite being a rare breed, they had potential because of their quality and rarity. Word of the amazing women from Goldmine spread swiftly and attracted notice from outside of the local community. One day, Raymond was given a man's visit who presented himself as Mr. Harris, was a successful investor who had an intense fascination with exotic and unique breeds that Mr. Harris was aware of. Raymond was excited and had Imani chicks to observe them, for Mr. Harris was instantly fascinated by the IMS's appearance. He appreciated their distinct beauty, mani, and observed their remarkable vitality and health. His eyes were shining as he turned to Raymond with interest. "These women are amazing. They are unlike anything I have ever seen." He agreed, and Raymond felt a rush of pride that they were unique, and clarified that he had dedicated himself to raising. Mr. Harris gave them a contemplative nod, saying, "I can notice that," he stated, "I think these birds possess enormous promise, not only for breeding, as well as to attract niche marketplaces that respect their uniqueness and enough beauty to pay a premium. I would like to make a proposal to." Raymond's heart was pounding. As Mr. Harris described the proposition, he was prepared to contribute to Raymond's farm by offering the funding required to increase experience and enhance operations. Mr. Harris requested a portion of the upcoming earnings from the Imani breeding and sales initiatives. The offer was substantial and would guarantee, above all, Raymond's financial future, would guarantee the stability of the farm and growth. Raymond paid close attention and evaluated the proposal. This was he had been waiting for. This chance was an opportunity to save not just his farm, however, to complete it, drive beyond his most untamed dreaming. While shaking hands firmly, Raymond approved the idea and wait for it to be lifted. His assumes responsibility for the collaboration with Mr. Harris implied that his Imani girls would provide success and acknowledgement to his farm, but there was still one sunny day left. While Raymond was caring for the flock, he saw something odd. Regarding one of the girls, it was a little more substantial than the others, and its feathers displayed an even more noticeable iridescent. Raymond was captivated by sheen and chose to taking a closer look. He scrutinized. The girl's eyes were a vivid shade of blue as opposed to the other eyes' dark eyes. "I am the heart of Samani." Raymond skipped a beat as he became aware that he might have discovered something amazing. He promptly got in touch with a geneticist with expertise in chickens to look at the girl the geneticist brought, and carried out a number of tests. The outcomes were amazingly. The girl had a unique genetic alteration that improved its already outstanding traits. that this mutation not just enhanced its aesthetic appeal, but additionally gave it more resilience and a quicker rate of expansion. The chick was essentially an ideal example. Characteristics of the AAM Semon breed were unmatched. News about the remarkable chicks immediately spread among breeders, collectors, and fans. All begged to view and maybe obtain the bird that was in sought. Offers flooded in at a dizzying rate. Greater than the previous disclosure of this particular genetic mutation, made sure Raymond's farm would continue to be at the leading the market for unusual poultry for years to come. Given the need and value for his strongly established AMC chicks, Raymond's sustained prosperity and the sustainability of the farm was guaranteed. That every day he will stand by the watch. The majestic birds peck in a coop at the earth as an intense feeling of against all. A wave of contentment washed over him. It was likely that he had not only saved his farm, but changed it to become a beacon of hope and achievement. Did you find this tale entertaining? How have you all handled challenging situations, moments in your life, similar to Raymond's has left? How do you feel about the advice you received, donating to people who are experiencing them correctly? Now, please inform us in the comments section below whether if you like the story, please subscribe, channel and make us such as when we lose. Occasionally, everyone hopes for miracles. Hi, I really appreciate you listening. Have a fantastic time, and I'll see you in the next video. Day.